What's up everybody, blessed be, my name is Mannun and you're watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. First things first, I'd like to thank all of you for stepping on this journey with me pertaining to this channel. And I want you all to know I so much appreciate all of your kind words, comments, and input that you share each and every day with myself and the others. This community is truly amazing, and together we're teaching and sharing with each other content and materials that may never be discovered otherwise through our typical books and online research. You guys and gals keep me going every day, and I look forward to hearing from you all and do my best to respond to each one of you in return. Thank you so very much for your participation, and I hope I can keep you inspired going forward to keep learning and progressing on your path. As for a fact, you all completely inspire me tremendously to continue with this channel and continue sharing whatever I can to you all in hopes of shedding light to even just one person who may not have understood or seen a certain circumstance in a different perspective. Again, I truly love you all, and thank you again. Well, we've been patiently slumbering through the colder months, and many of us were hit pretty hard by old man winter this year. Texas especially was caught off guard this year and really suffered a blow by the winter fallout, mainly because they just weren't prepared like some of our more northern states that deal with the winter every year, clockwork. However, here we are midway through March, and the first day of spring lurks right around the corner, promising warmth and growth in the seasons to come. This episode will be talking all about the Spring Equinox, or Ostara. So let's get into it and roll the intro. Welcome back everybody. So Ostara takes place around March 22nd and is the Spring Equinox, or the first day of spring. The name Ostara comes to us from the Germanic virgin goddess of spring, and this is why some of us call the Spring Equinox Ostara. Many of our current customs and ritual content come from Greece, Rome, Nordic, and Germanic cultures. Many of the myths that are displayed to us from these cultures share a theme of journeying into the underworld and returning with life renewed, ready to push forward once again, bringing forth wisdom and growth to ourselves and the lands. There are many deities that have shared this death and rebirth cycle and journey, some of whom would be Persephone, Odin, Dagda, Mithras, Osiris, Orpheus, Attis, Hera, and even Jesus. And as many of you know, and I've mentioned in previous videos, one of the three major pieces that make up the common practice of an initiation involves symbolic death and rebirth, just as these gods and goddesses experience, as we will too someday in most pagan belief systems, of course, referring to reincarnation. One of our most common holidays during this time of year is St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is a cultural celebration held on March 17th each year. St. Patrick's Day was made an official Christian feast day in the early 17th century. St. Patrick, a 5th century missionary and bishop in Ireland who was thought to have gathered all of the snakes in Ireland and gotten rid of them, which is why supposedly there are no snakes that inhabit Ireland today. This was indeed a tale told that used snakes in place of the thousands of pagans that he converted to Christianity on the island. Although even this allegation has been met with research and resistance as of lately, claiming that paganism remained strong in Ireland both before and after St. Patrick's historical existence on the Emerald Isle. This being said, there are many pagans today who won't acknowledge or celebrate St. Patrick's Day because of this. Do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day? If you do or do not, let us know why in the comments below. This was a time of the year that the Teutons would honor their goddess of spring, whom was called Easter. As many of you may have already guessed, this is where the Christianized holiday of Easter comes from. Also, at this time, the Norse would celebrate the coming together and mating of their virgin goddess and young god. Granted, this act has been moved to Beltane in most circles nowadays. In Greco-Roman cultures, their goddess Ceres, an ancient grain goddess, was honored and celebrated during these times. She was thought to travel from field to field, blessing the newly sown crops and pushing forth life and growth for the months to come. In Slavic pagan cultures, this was a time of the year when it was thought that death had no power over the living. In this tradition, a symbolic form of death was created and then processed to a river where it was drowned. At this point, flowers, symbols of life renewed, would be tossed in after him as his symbolic body floated down the river. Just the same, people who passed away during Ostara were thought to be favored, special by the gods, and would be given princely treatment until the time of their reincarnation. During this ritual is also some of the first stirrings of painted eggs, as these eggs would be painted red and carried to the ritual site and passed around. New life would be celebrated after death's drowning with food, alcohol, and dancing. Sounds like a typical circle night if you ask me. Minus the red eggs though. Well, anyway. Another tradition in Teutonic culture was to wear bright and elaborate clothing during the spring celebrations. It was actually considered very bad luck to wear any of this clothing before the first day of spring, and many would spend the winter months crafting these elaborate dressings in private to show them off on the big bang of spring. Also, the lily held another important role in Greco-Roman cultures. To them, the lily was a symbol of life, counter to that of the Christian belief that the lily symbolizes death. And this flower would adorn the altars of many pagans throughout those lands. Young men would pull a lily and present this to a young woman that they fancied, as in this culture, it was the equivalence of handing over and proposing with a diamond ring as in this day and age. In Celtic lands, Ostara was not really a thing until the Norse invaders introduced it into these lands, where it promptly became yet another cherished holiday and celebrated amongst the peoples. This holiday was labeled Lady Day in Cornwall and Wales, and in fact was a celebration of the return of the goddess from the underworld, from her winter hibernation, so to speak. We see this story in many pagan cultures, this symbolic death and rebirth of the goddess, bringer of life, making the world bright and beautiful again from the harshness of winter and the bleak, cold months. Again, this is a time of balance and equality where it was thought the goddess would meet and mate with the god on equal terms and become impregnated with his aspect to be reborn during Yule, and also the harvest bounty upcoming at Lugnasad, Mannun, and Samhain harvests. Some other pagan celebrations that took place near Ostara were the Festival of Astarte, which was Greek, Roman, and Persian, the Feast of Isis, which is Egyptian, Aphrodite Day, which is Greek, Festival of Athena, which again is Greek, the Feast of Sibyl, which is Italian, and the Feast of Hilaria, which is Roman. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for, answering the question of where does the Easter egg come into play from pagan practices. The egg is the universal archetype of new life. Eggs, for as long as man can remember, have been sacred objects carried by many in years past as fertility amulets, decorated to deities in honor of them, placed upon spring altars around the world, and given as gifts to bring forth the spring in celebration, as well as, very importantly, sacred objects of eternal life. Also, little tidbit of my own. I was recently sick with a cold, and a wonderful young priestess I know who grew up in the Santorian culture, which is a Hispanic-based religio Magick, told me to take a bunch of vitamins she specified, and most importantly, get an egg and rub it all over my body. While rubbing the egg all over myself from head to toe, imagine my sickness and negativity going from me into the egg. When finished, and I felt like the magic had been done and finalized, I was to take the egg to a remote area and throw it as hard and as far away from myself as possible, knowing that the egg had taken my negativity, sickness, and any evil spirits with it. Did it, done it, and it worked out very well. So, might want to try that next time you're sick. Now, let's talk about the Easter Bunny. Let's go full circle back to our lovely goddess Easter. Quote, "So much did a lovely rabbit wish to please this goddess that he laid the sacred eggs in her honor, gaily decorated them, and then humbly presented them to her. So pleased was she that she wished all humankind to share in her joy. In honoring her wishes, the rabbit went through all of the world and distributed these little decorated gifts of life." Have some fun this Ostara and decorate some Easter eggs. Put runes and other pagan symbols on the eggs. If you have some pagan friends that you hang out with or a coven, have them come over and do an Easter egg hunt. As the participants find the eggs, they will have a runic or other pagan symbol inscribed on the egg that they can translate and see what becomes them for the spring months to come moving forward. I've even celebrated an Ostara with a coven quite a few years ago where they had purchased some of the Easter eggs that you can put candy and trinkets within them, only being that this was a mostly adult gathering, and this particular Ostara celebration involved some of the fertility-based energy and theme discussed earlier in this video. They had stuffed very interesting little trinkets in the eggs, which I won't get into detail about, but you'd be amazed what can be put into these things, and more importantly, the fun that came out of them for you and your partner for months to come. And of course, these eggs, regardless of what you stuff into them, are hidden and searched for by the participants in the standard way many of us grew up doing through the years. The Easter or Ostara egg hunt itself holds pagan ties. I'm not sure where I learned it. I just remember I learned that in some of the cultures, I think in many Celtic traditions, groundfowl would lay eggs across the hillsides around this time. Well, many of the peoples would go through the hills and seek out the eggs to harvest for food, and in essence, here you have the first stirrings of the modern day Easter egg hunt, which in essence was just the egg hunt, quite literally. The modern-day Easter egg hunt became popular by President Abraham Lincoln. In 1862, during the Civil War, the president invited the children of the area to the White House lawn to do the Easter egg hunt, most likely to take their minds off the fighting. This has been held traditionally ever since. Ostara is also a great time of the year to do some planting. In fact, I host an Ostara Sabbath every year, and within its structure, I always incorporate a planting of seeds that are given to each participant, where they in turn put a specific energy they wish to achieve into the seed and then plant it for the magic to grow with the plant and come into fruition. It's super easy to grow herbs and whatnot, even if you don't have the green thumb, so to speak. You can get these little growing kits from your local Home Depot or Lowe's, for instance, that makes the process dummy-proof and quite simple. Just check out your gardening center at your local store of choice and you can find them. All you have to do is pick out what you want to plant and give it a go. Just make sure whatever you decide to grow will grow okay in your climate, as this will be different for each of us. Maybe choose a simple herb, as many of these can be grown quite well indoors with some window sun aiding the course. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Witch Into Working. How do you celebrate Ostara? Do you have any tips for the rest of us on growing a few herbs for Ostara? Do you decorate eggs, and if so, how do you do it? Let us all know in the comments below. As usual, if you like my content for this channel, please hit the subscribe button and ring that little bell to remind you of future episodes to come. I love you guys and gals. Have an amazing Ostara and welcome in the spring with open arms, and we'll see you next time. Blessed be.